Hello everyone. So today let us talk about planning in Jira. Now in this video I want to talk about a plan that you may want to create when you are working on Jira software, for example, and you're trying to create a plan for the next few months. Now in this video, I also want to talk about a frustration that you may have when it comes to planning using Jira. Now, let us say you have epics. Now, epic is, of course, a very popular agile concept. In Jira, of course, you have an issue type called epic, and you would break down your epic into stories. Now, when it comes to planning, let us say you follow sprints. I'm talking about, of course, Scrum-based methodology or pure agile. If you want to follow agile by book, you of course may want to create sprint. So I guess many people do create sprints, although they may not use all the agile features, all the things that you're supposed to do. But it's okay as long as you are on that path. I think it's fine. So let us say you have this scenario where you have sprints. For example, in this particular case, I have a sprint 3, 4, and 5. Basically, some of these sprints are, maybe running right now. Some of these sprints are in future. Now, when you're doing your planning, you may want to plan across multiple sprints. Now, let us say you are launching an Android app. You're also launching an iOS app, and these are basically epics in your project. Now, you may want to create a new epic. Let us say you want to launch a website, right? So this is again something that you want to do. But when you're doing your planning, and I'm talking about planning which you may want to do like high level in the beginning. So in the beginning, you may want to create a plan. Maybe you're supposed to do it for your management that, okay, we are going to start the work maybe sometime next week or this week, and we will continue to work on it for the next few months. Now, this is, of course, a big epic. Ideally, you should be spending, if not 2 or 3, maybe 4, 3. I mean, there is no fixed number, but usually your epics are supposed to be delivered in multiple sprints. Now, the problem is, although you have defined on a roadmap, and you may not be using a roadmap because on Jira's server version or data center version, you don't really have this roadmap capability. At least within a project, you have to use the advanced roadmap. And let us say you're not really using any roadmap, you're just looking at this epic. Now, when you open this epic, and you may want to create an epic by clicking on the button on top. So let us say you want to create a new epic. Let us use the create issue screen. Now, as a release manager, as a scrum master, or as a project manager, you may want to do some planning, high level planning, where you can do the same thing. You can say, okay, I want to create or maybe set up infrastructure. This is like a big epic. Now, when you are filling up this form, you may want to specify the sprint or multiple sprints in which this epic will be delivered. The problem with this particular field is that you can't really have multiple values here. Although you can say here that, okay, this epic will be delivered in sprint 5, but it is not really going to reflect in reality how many sprints you're going to use, how many sprints you're going to basically run to deliver this epic. Of course, we have filled in sprint 5, which is the sprint in which this epic will be delivered, but this might not be ideal because you're not really able to report on it. And the way Jira works is you have to basically break it down into various stories. So you can, of course, create various stories under it. Story 1, story 2, story 3, whatever. And when you're doing your planning, you have the option to basically say, okay, this story 1, or maybe these top stories in my backlog that are part of my epic setup infrastructure will be delivered in sprint 3. Then some of them will be delivered in sprint 2. Then remaining would be delivered in sprint 5. And as you can see, as I'm doing it, the roadmap is actually built for you. The dates are actually filled for you, which is great. Now, this is again a rolled up view because if you open, let us say if I open this launch website, and if I look at the fields, you may have some information about basically this information about the start date or end date of these epics. For example, if I open, let us just open, let us take a look at what we have in this particular epic, which is launch a website. And when you're looking at the fields here, okay, I don't really see any start or end date, but let me try to okay, let me just try to basically look at the issue navigator. Let me just go to the issue navigator, and I will hopefully try to show you how the fields are updated. Now what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to basically build this report or basically a plan that you are hopefully trying to create. For example, we have, okay, so let us look at the Android project, and let us just focus on epics. So we basically have the same information, but what I'm trying to show you is there are fields like start date or end date that are actually populated for you. For example, for launching a website, it says here the start date is 14th of January and the end date is 27th of February. So the end date here is not really updated. Okay, so it says 14th of January, which is correct. But let us take a look at other fields. What other fields do we have here? It might be due date. Okay, so we have two due dates. And I'm not really sure which one to use, so I'll probably use both of them. All right, so there is no end date, and let me just try to update it here manually. Okay, let us now go back and click on the search button. Okay, so there is no end date getting populated, or maybe there is another date, which is something, I'm not really sure. What is the end date here? Okay, target end maybe? Come on. No. All right. So what I'll do is I will try, because I can see the start date is getting filled in. I'm not really sure from where it is picking up the end date. So basically what I was trying to say is that for setup infrastructure, there is no start date because it is rolled up. But the moment you click on it, or the moment you can also, just do it manually, because, okay, so if you do it manually, why? Simply dragging it, then if you go back to your search box, the start date is of course populated, but the roadmap will be created for you based on what you have under these epics. And let me just try to also move the bar manually and try to populate the end date. End date is not really coming. I'm not really sure which date are we talking about here. So it says 18th of February, and unfortunately, do we have any way to define here what exactly these dates are? Or because I know that when you're working with, okay, let us look at the roadmap. So there is no, okay, the roadmap is enabled. Yeah, we know roadmap is enabled, but okay, blah, 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 date of the sprints. With this feature, okay, child level scheduling. That is fine. Come on. General. Do we have any way to configure? I don't really think so. Yeah, so this is a bit annoying, but anyways, let us look at this option here again. So no, there is no option here. There should be an option, to be honest, because it says here, I think there was a way to enable, or do we have a way to enable or disable? So it says child level issue scheduling. With this feature enabled, time bar for child level issues will be visible on your timeline using the dates of the sprint. Okay, with this feature enabled, but is there a way to disable it or enable it again? Let me just go back. Okay, let us take a look at the link here. And I'm just trying to, okay, how do I view blah, blah, blah. No. Schedule parent issues on your roadmap. It says due date. All right, let me just go back and select here due date. No. So there is no. Oh, due date. So this is the field. Okay. So yeah, okay. So we know the field. So it is not really end date, but there should be a way to configure it. Anyways, so now we know that it is indeed due date, and I was of course not really picking up because I have like multiple fields with the same name, unfortunately. Anyways, so so this is again, so a couple of things. So if you're trying to do some planning at the epic level, yeah, you can, but you won't be able to say clearly when you're looking at your epics that I want to deliver this epic in sprint 1, 2, and 3, and so on. You can probably select the target sprint date. However, the way Jira software works, whenever you deliver these stories, the sprint field will show you, because you might want to move the story from one epic from one sprint to another sprint. So your sprint field will show you multiple sprints, but those will be completed sprints, and similarly for epic as well, which is great. But when you're doing your planning, unfortunately, you don't really have a way to have multiple sprints. And this is, of course, it might not be ideal, but it is in a way a feature of the tool, if not a limitation, because you are supposed to break up your epics into stories. And I think it is not that difficult in the beginning. What you can always do is, I mean, if you're on Jira Cloud, of course, you can take a look at the roadmap, because the roadmap will show you visually. But if you're doing some reporting at the epic level, then you have to then you have to basically just rely on one field in the sprint. And EasyBI can do it. What you can do is you can build one EasyBI report where you can, at the epic level, show the earliest, or basically you can show all the sprints under which that particular epic will be delivered. And you can also pick up the earliest start date of all those sprints and the last end date of all those sprints. So EasyBI can do it, and I think I've shown it how to do it. But and that can be used because when you're doing some planning at the epic level, you may want to just focus on, okay, these are the epics, but you may not break it down into actual stories. The other thing that you can do is you can also just break it down. I think just create some stories to have some idea about so basically what you can do is you can create these epics and also create the stories under it, and then if not all the stories, at least some placeholder stories for those future epics, and then maybe rely on EasyBI report or just look at the roadmap here, because you can also export it. I believe this will actually create some kind of a JPG or PNG, I guess PNG, and it is not ideal, because when you're doing the same thing using advanced roadmaps, you can in a way say, again, the field can only have one value. But if you're using just the roadmap, or if you're just focused on, let us say, the list of epics within just one project, you have to live with this. Anyways, so this is what I wanted to talk about and show you today, how you can make an epic plan or plan based on epics without going too deep into these stories, because unfortunately sprints cannot have multiple values that you can update manually. All right, that is it. That is it for today. I hope you enjoyed watching this video and you learned something new. Thank you very much. Bye bye.